Hi everyone, my name's Sophia. I'm from London and I would like to say hello in Ugandan. Mujebeli, Uganda. Yes, I've done it. I got it right. Okay, so I want to introduce you guys to my new podcast starting now. And guys, it's called Voices Unplugged with me, with Sophia. Voices Unplugged with Sophia. What a great name. I know, great name. But guys, I want you to really tune into who I'm about, what I'm about, and why I'm here. I've been coming to Uganda now for over a year and a half, and I have literally fallen in love with this country. I love the people, I love the food, I love the culture, I love the parties. The music and the vibes. Oh my gosh. It reminds me of where I'm from in Jamaica. Like, when you go out, the music is just amazing. The people are free. They just want to get to know you, talk to you, friendly, and they love me. And by the way, they call me Wazungu. Now, the first time someone called me Wazungu, I'm like, what does Wazungu mean? They say, you are Wazungu. They didn't tell me what it means. They just say, you are Wazungu. In other words, because I'm very light-skinned and it's like a white person. So I get offended. Nothing against white people. I love all people. But I said to them, hold on, what does Wazungu mean? So they said, someone who looks like you. And then I said, I'm not a Wazungu, I'm an African woman. And they said, okay, bye Wazungu. In other words, you are a Wazungu. So I've accepted their culture, I've embraced their culture, and as I said, I love it. So why am I here? I want to tell you a bit about my life in London and who I'm about and what I'm about. I've been through a lot of things. But, I just want to break it down to you as best as I can, as real as I can, and as genuine as I can. I love to just be real. There's nothing what beats real people, right? I love God, and God is real. So if I love God, I've got to be real. So, I'm just going to tell you a bit about my life and my story. So I grew up in London, and London is a very fast place. It's like a rat race. Everyone's working, everyone's stressed out. It's a stressful country. And we do have terms, as you know. We have spring, we have winter, we have summer. And, a lot of the time, it's always cold. Like summer, you might get a month what's warm out of summer. Literally, it's freezing cold the whole time. So who wouldn't want to be in Uganda? Boiling hot, sunny, it's great. And I'm here because my husband's here, he does business, and my son, and I love it. I come here and I just feel the stress just float, just go. Literally, I just feel the stress leave me. So as I said, I grew up in a house of 5 siblings, and I am the 4th girl. Then I have 2 brothers after me. We grew up with my mother, and father was not around. She got married and sadly got divorced because he was a player. I don't know what you call it in Uganda, but in London we call them player, just no good. In Jamaica, we call it waklis. Waklis, good for nothing. That's what they call them in Jamaica. I don't know what Ugandans call it, but my father was no good. I only knew my dad from 4 years old. And from 4 years old, I've never seen him since. And decades later, I still haven't seen him. He literally done a runner. Can you imagine a young girl growing up, no dad, he done a runner. But in where I'm from in Jamaica, a lot of the men actually do that. I don't know how it is in Uganda, but that's how it was for me. So there I was, I grew up in this household with 5 of us. And, we grew up very poor. You may look at me and think, oh, Wazungu, she's got loads of money. But let me tell you this now. I grew up with very poor. I actually went to school with holes in my shoes. And I was teased in school because my mum had 6 of us. And she just couldn't afford to clothe us and give us the nice things we wanted. And I remember as a child, I came home from school and there was bikes there for all of us. And I thought to myself, how did my mum get this money to buy us these bikes? It was like amazing. And she worked so hard. My mum was a cleaner and she came from Jamaica when she was 16 years old. And, imagine coming to a country, yeah, and in the country, when you arrive in the country, they say to you, no blacks, no Irish, no dogs. I don't know if you Ugandans have heard about this, but that's how it was in London. No blacks, no Irish, no dogs. Because the reason why they said Irish, because the Irish were very they used to live in like caravans, so they were looked down upon. So, you know, and no one wanted to give my mum a room. And her mum, who sent for her, she had to, her house was really full, so she had to put my mum up in a room. And it was just the Jewish people were allowed my mum in their house. So she worked and she worked and she worked, and she had children, but no father was about. But my mum was an amazing entrepreneur. And then as time went on, as I got older in school, you know, because I never had a father to guide me, I was just bad. I was bad in school. I'm not going to lie. I can't sit here and say I had great schooling. I was naughty. And I remember going to, in my senior years, when I got to like 12 and onwards, I remember once in class, it was history lesson, and I'll never forget this teacher. His name was Mr. Boyd. I'll never forget him. And he wore these clogs. And he was just horrible. I didn't like his spirit. I just didn't like him. And, you know, I used to always say to him when I go to his class, can I go to the toilet? And I would bunk his lesson, like never come back. And then one day, and I kept doing it, lesson after lesson after lesson. And then one lesson, I said to him, I want to go to the toilet. He said, you are not going to the toilet. And can you believe it? I was so bad. I said to him, yes, I am. And I walked out of the class. And he came out of the class and he said, he grabbed me and he slapped me. And I couldn't believe it. And I thought, oh my God, because in London, you just can't do that. In Jamaica, they will beat you. And I don't know how it is in Africa, but in Jamaica, and I'm sure in Uganda too, they will give you the whips. But back in those days, they weren't allowed. So I hit him back. Can you believe? I know, Ugandans, sorry, don't judge me. Don't judge me. Don't judge me, Ugandans, yeah? But I couldn't believe it. I boxed him back. And I was happy. But my mum was so upset with me, and I disappointed her. Anyway, they chucked me out of school. So I had to leave school. And, you know, I was just an angry child, and I believe it's because I had no father. You know, I just grew up angry. I was angry. And then I started to do crime. I started to do bad things. I know you look at me and think, huh? But yeah, I'm being real. Keep it real, right? That's what this podcast is about. Real. So, yeah, and I just started to do bad things on the street. And, you know, just like I'm going to say it, but we actually went in gangs. I joined a little girl gang, and we went up. I remember never forgetting it. We'd hang out with these boys who would rob people, literally rob people, and we were there like happy. We wouldn't actually be part of it, but we were part of it, if that makes sense. I'm actually embarrassed to say it, but thank God for Jesus, because I gave my life to God, and I kind of changed my life, but I was still living both lives. You know, I grew up in church. My mother brought me to church from a young age, but, you know, it was just like, I was just like, it was a bit like this, just being pulled like this. A part of me was with God, a part of me was not with God, and it just wasn't good. And then I met this guy, and I just turned 16. I met this guy. You know, I was still a virgin. You know, I was a lovely, decent girl. I wasn't interested in sex or anything like that. And I met this guy, and he was a monster, literally a monster. And, you know, as time went on in the relationship, you know, him and I would go out and stuff like that. And I don't know if you guys in Uganda have heard of, it was drugs, but it was different kind of drugs. It was these little pills called ecstasy. I don't know if you've heard of it in Uganda. But back in those days, it was big on the raving scene, and he would sell ecstasy, but he wouldn't sell the real ones, he'd sell the fake ones. And in London, we call it dud-ease, right? And he'd make me hold them for him. He just treated me horribly. And then he started to beat me up for no reason. I remember going to a party once, and I saw a friend of mine, it was a guy, and I said to the guy, hi, how you doing? And by the time I got home, he beat me black and blue. And I'm like, what did I do? Why are you talking to that guy? Can you believe it? Saying to me, why am I talking to that guy? That's why he beat me up. Crazy. And I was black and blue. Then it started to continue, him beating me. And I thought, I've got to get out of this, you know? And one day I went into his kitchen and I saw him mixing like this white stuff. And I realized it was crack at the time. And I thought, oh my God, because I used to smoke, like, you know, weed, stuff like that, but never would I touch the white stuff. That's not me. But I got introduced to smoking weed, and I smoked it a lot. That was my escape. But that's not the right escape. Young people in Uganda, that is not the right way to be. Weed is not the way out. God is the way out. Trust me. Weed is not the way out. Okay? So stay away from it. Weed, drugs, that ain't the one. But I was young. I was young and very naive. And, you know, there I was with this guy, and, you know, he beat me up all the time. And I thought, no, I've got to get out. And one day, he beat me so badly that my face was busted, my nose was bleeding. And at that time, I thought I was a very beautiful person inside and out, but I didn't know myself. I didn't know who I was. That's what I'm saying. Young ladies, know who you are. Know who you are, because it's very important. Don't let anyone try to control you, your mind, or, you know, or your body. You know, and he actually said to me once, "You're mine." And I thought, no, I'm not. And I never forget, he beat me so badly, and I ran, and I ran, and I ran. I ran out of his house, right, and I had barefoot. And I ran down the road barefoot to the taxi station. Now, we don't have border in London. Like you Ugandans have like border. Anyway, so I ran and I took a taxi, and that was it. I never turned back. Actually, I did turn back, because there's a thing called soul tie, young people. There is a soul tie. Sometimes we you know, go with someone and we don't even realize that spirit was coming into us, and it's a soul tie. And that's what happened with me. I was soul tied to this monster. And I thought that day I got in the taxi and I ran away, I thought I'd never go back. But I did. Sadly, I did. And then I fell pregnant. And I just didn't know what to do. But guess what? I had a miscarriage. That's another thing. But in a way, it's good, because I didn't want to have a baby for a monster. But, I've been through so much. But that is just a snippet of what I've been through. So growing up, my mum, as I said, I had 5 siblings. And she just was under a lot of pressure, because she didn't have a business by then. She was just still working to make ends meet, to feed us and clothe us. And she used to send us to her sister's house. Now, at her sister's house, there's a cousin there. I hanged out with my cousins, and there was an older cousin there. He was probably maybe 8 years older than me, and he started to sexually abuse me. And I was so like, why me? You know, why does this have to happen to me? You know, but it did over and over again. And I used to cry and I used to pray. Because remember, I used to go to church from a young age. And I used to pray and say, God, just don't let this happen. Why? Why me? Why is this happening? And he kept doing it over and over and over again. And it was just so painful, because, you know, it wasn't physical sex, but it was abuse. It was bad. In fact, maybe if he just had physical sex, it would have been probably better than what he was doing. It was just manipulation. It was horrible. And even at night, I know this is a bit graphic, but I need to be honest, yeah? Because I know that there's people probably in Uganda and Jamaica, London, who's going through this and don't know how to share. Speak out. Do not hide your story. Speak out. Doesn't matter how graphic, doesn't matter how it is. Be transparent and speak out. Do you know why? Because that's healing. So anyway, going back to my story, he used to come to me in the middle of the night after he was being raving, and I'd feel, he'd rub himself upon me, and I'd feel like this water running down. And remember, I'm a young child. I don't know what that is. Only now, as an adult, I understood what that was. It was terrible, and that went on for about 3 years in London at my auntie's house. And I was just messed up. So then I was in school at the time. So because of what was happening to me, I couldn't focus. So it was just awful. And then thank God I moved on completely from that horrible monster guy, and I met the man of my dreams. I'm still with him, my beautiful husband. You know, I love him. He was just like, it was just like meeting the monster to the king. I met my African king, and it was just beautiful. And he still is my African king many years later. So Yeah, I've been through a lot. I just continue to just try. Felt like I was being dragged through life, because when you go through that kind of abuse, mental, physical and sexual, you just don't know, you feel lost. And I didn't have any help. I didn't have any counselors. And in the African Caribbean culture, Uganda, Jamaica, Barbados, all these countries, Afro-Caribbean, African and Caribbean, that's what it stands for. Now, we don't teach our children about counseling. But you see, white people, Wazungu, they grow up they get their children to have counseling. It is something in our culture we don't do. Now, I would advise anyone who's going through any sexual abuse, mental or physical abuse from anyone, seek counseling. If you don't have the money, go to the doctor and find out if they can introduce you to the right person to have counseling. But at that time, many years back, that was in the 70s, there was no counseling. In the 80s, there was no counseling. That was a joke in my culture. Counseling? Pay money for counseling? And my mother? No. I didn't tell anyone about my sexual abuse for years. I told my new partner when I was like 22. Now, bear in mind, this happened to me when I was 12. And I only told him when I was 22. I was in Jamaica, and I'll never forget. You know, I told him, and he was so angry. My spiritual journey, I would say, has been very up and down. You know, there's a scripture, it says, we may fall down. There's a song, actually, we fall down, but we get up. Well, I have fell down many times on my spiritual journey. I actually got baptized when I was 9 years old. And then I stayed with God. I had a zeal for God from 9 years old. And as I said, I grew up in the church, and I love God. I love singing. I love praising God. I just loved it. I love worship. And then I backslid. I kind of went off the rails when I was around 15. And then I got re-baptized because I wanted to rededicate my life to God, because I've been through so much trauma. So I got re-baptized at 25. And, you know, although I have fell up and down, I stay with God, because it's only Him what helped me through the sexual abuse, through the mental abuse, the physical abuse. You know, everything I've been through, it's only God. And I remember I was around 27, and I remember going to counseling. And I went into this room, and there was this very Caucasian lady sitting there, very, you know, quite posh. She didn't understand me. She couldn't relate to me. You know, I couldn't relate to her. And I realized that counseling at that time was just not for me. So what I done, I poured my heart out to God, and I said, God, help me. And I spoke to God about everything I went through, and slowly, slowly, God just healed me. He literally just took the pain from my heart, and He just made me into the woman I am today. And I've never let go of God. So anyone who's going through anything, just know who you are first. And remember, and another thing what I always used to do is try to encourage everyone else, but leave myself out. After God, you come next. After God, you have to encourage yourself, and then you can encourage others. What happened is my abuser, he died. He died from pneumonia. And what made me so upset was my siblings, they wanted to go to his funeral. Now, I told my siblings, they all knew eventually. Years later, but I told them. 10 years later, but I plucked the courage to tell them, and they wanted to go to his funeral, and I was really upset, and a few of my siblings went. 2 of them didn't go. 2 of them was loyal. But the reason why the other siblings went, because it's their auntie. Now, obviously, the auntie of the abuser was their auntie too, so they're showing respect. But I didn't go, and I said to God, God, you know, and I heard God's voice, and God said to me, you don't have to go. I said to God, I'm not going to his funeral. He hurt me, I'm not going. And God said to me, you don't have to go to his funeral, but you have to forgive him. And that was so hard for me, because if you're following God, you have to forgive. Loving others and forgiving is one of the main things we have to do. So I forgave him. I forgave him in my heart. I didn't go to the funeral, but I forgave him. So my advice to you young women out there who are being sexually abused, you know, speak to someone, speak out. And in your heart, if you can, forgive the abuser, because that will help you heal and you move on. So yeah, so that chapter is finished. And then I went to a party with my best friend. I went to a party about a year ago. And bear in mind that the abuser who abused me for all those years, not the sexual abuser, the physical abuser, my first boyfriend, I saw him at this party and I said to my friend, oh my God, that's him. I didn't see this first boyfriend for years. And I said, that's him. He's like, oh my God. I said, that's him. And part of me felt fear because he used to beat me up so badly. But remember, I'm a grown woman. I'm a grown ass woman. And I see him there at the party and I froze. And I said, that's him. That's definitely him. And then he came over to me. I was sitting, remember, this is last year. He came over to me and he said to me, Sophia, hi, you're right. And I was so shocked that and I said to him, I grew confidence. And I said to him, listen, do not speak to me until you apologize for what you've done to me. Do not even say hello. And he said, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for what I've done to you. I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't have done it. I'm sorry. And I said, okay, I forgive you. And at that moment, I forgave him. Someone who beat me up so bad, blacked up my eyes, blood pouring from my nose, beat me up constantly. That moment, I forgave him. So if you have anyone in your life what you just find it very difficult to forgive, I'm asking you, forgive them. And if you cannot, go to God, go on your knees if you have to, talk to him wherever you are in your car and say, God, please help me to forgive that person. Because you know something, when you forgive that person, you heal yourself. It's healing. And everyone wants to be healed. There's so much broken people around the world. So heal yourself and forgive. So going back to what I was saying, I couldn't believe it. And at that party, there he was at this party, and he was just acting like he's so great. And then I went over to him at one point just to have to carry on talking because he said sorry and I forgave him. And he had a bunch of his friends there and he wanted to show off. And he said to his friends, all his friends were there and he was there too. And I was there, my friend was sitting over there and I went up to talk to him. And he said, yeah, this was my wife and this was going to be my wife, So I said to him, no, I was never going to be your wife. So don't even try that. Don't even try and say that. And I walked off and I left him. And I felt so good. How dare him say I'm going to be his wife? Years later, I was never going to be his wife and I made it clear. But why am I sharing this story? Because, do you know why? Because forgiveness is everything. And it was just great. And I even got him food. I got him a plate of food and gave him. And you never believe it as well. I've then phoned my husband and I told him on a FaceTime. And because my husband was in Uganda. And my ex-boyfriend came on the phone and they were talking. That's how great God is. I couldn't believe it myself, but they were even just commuting because they knew each other from back in the day. And they were just talking like normal. And I said to myself, wow, look at that. But in my life, I've been through so much. And I don't think on this podcast, I can actually share everything. It's just so much. But I'm telling you, there is so much to share, guys. And you just got to tune in to me because I'll be sharing part 2 of my story. There's so much. I have skimmed the top today. Yeah, literally. But yeah, I'm really happy. I'm really happy to be in Uganda. I love the people, and in the next episode, I'll be speaking about the borders. They are motorbikes. Ugandans, how do you cope with those borders? You don't wear no helmet. In my country, that's a crime. We go to jail. We cannot be on the... Anyway, I went on border. The first time I came to Uganda, this is my 6th time coming to Uganda, I went on one of your borders. The experience was scary. I was so scared. But there was a part of me what liked it. There was a part of me was like, it was like a roller coaster. I really enjoyed. It was free. I felt free, but at the same time, I couldn't stop thinking I don't have a helmet on. So I went out, and Christmas gone, I brought all my family, my husband, my son, my daughter, myself, helmets. And my husband looked at it, my son looked at it, and they said, "I'm not going to wear that," because they just do like the Ugandans do. So I now have decided no more border. I literally have Ubers now. I take Ubers now. Because it's scary. It's scary. But, everywhere in Uganda is borders. Like one day, my friend from Uganda, I've made a few friends here, very good friends. And one day, I said, I want to go to the town because she always gets the African material for me. But this time I said, I want to go with you. Huh? So I went with her. Who told me to go with her down the town? The next episode, I'll be telling you about that. But it was just crazy. It was, even crossing the road, I think I'm going to get run over. I don't know how you Ugandans do it, but I guess you're used to it. I thought they were going to knock me down. You know, she had to hold my hand, pull me out the road. But it's such a great experience. It reminds me of my country in Jamaica, what I'll be speaking to you about in my next episode. But I'll leave you with this. Do your best to get a positive out of a negative, and do not let situations and life bring you down. You know, try your best, not try, because try means no. Do your best to stay positive, stay happy no matter what comes your way, and trust God in everything. Trust God in everything, okay? Because He's the only one who will help your life and help you go through. I'll leave you with those words. Over and out. You are tuned in to Voices Unplugged with Sophia.